Hello, BookTube. I have a short tag for you today. This is the character adaptation tag. I was tagged by Jason at Byways in Bookland, and original tag was by Seeking Stories. So just three questions here. Let's get started. Name your two favorite book to film character adaptations. Well, the first one took place in 1976. I was in Waterbury, Connecticut. I was on a choir trip. We spent a week in Waterbury, Connecticut, and then went to New York City, where we took a Circle Line tour. Then went to Philadelphia, then over to Washington D.C., where the choirs it was a part of sang on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Now, in the movie theater in Waterbury, Connecticut, we saw a film there, and in the film was All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward. There's one part scene in the film where Robert Redford, who played Bob Woodward, went to the put his hand on one of the he's going up to the Library of Congress and put his hand on one of the stone facades. And when we got to Washington D.C., the choir got to Washington D.C. A lot of the girls go, oh, well, bye, look, that's where Robert Redford touched. And what was interesting about the film is that the director, Alan Pakula, Pakula, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. The director used a special lens in the film, and it hasn't been done before. And it probably has since, but this is a special lens in which it shows depth in the scene, like in the scene in the newsroom, instead of usually what we would see would be either Woodward or Bernstein, played by Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. You would see them, but you would not see depth to the scene. And so the director used a special lens to show that there was a depth to that shot. Every time it was taken in the newsroom, they would show that depth. Jason Robards won an Oscar for his role as Ben Bradley, and he won the year previously for the movie Julia. What was interesting about, and I got the DVD, but it kind of was strange because every time I would get the DVD, it would say we're not playing this region. And I never can understand why it wouldn't play my DVD in this region in Texas. It's unusual, and finally I found one that was played in this region. The interesting thing about it, when Mark Felt came out and said that he was indeed Deep Throat, and he was upset that he got passed over for being director of the FBI, so he just got, the elder at the church I was attending at the time was over at his friend's house when he was growing up. He was at his friend's house, and his friend said, "Oh, this is my uncle Mark Felt," and he didn't think anything about it at that time. Now it's dawned on him. Excuse me, let me get a drink here. The second one is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. It's incredible job, incredible scenes, incredible acting, and this is the French Connection. This is the book. It's a nonfiction book, and this book was originally published. This is a reprint of the book, 30th anniversary of it. and it was originally published in 1969, and it has the maps. Excuse me, and it has photographs, and here is a picture of one of the detectives. Right here, he kind of looks like Gene Hackman, who is one of my favorite actors. And his actual name was Eddie Egan, and not Popeye Doyle, as they changed the name in the movie. And this one, his partner was Salvador Grosso, or Sonny, and he was played by Roy Scheider in the film The French Connection. And I just give you a little taste of it back here. When New York City detectives Eddie Popeye Egan and his partner Sonny Grosso routinely tell the native nephew of a fugitive mob boss at the observance of wild spinning at the Copacabana, they quickly realize they're onto something big, an impending delivery of narcotics. The mobsters and Groninus connections are with several distinguished Frenchmen, including the director of the world's largest heroin network and a star of French television. It was interesting how the two detectives were actually off duty, and Eddie Egan, who was Popeye, nicknamed Popeye, his girlfriend worked at the Copacabana. So when the two detectives go into this swanky bar nightclub to see a show, they just happen to see this other guy, some guy that comes in that they knew as a owner of a luncheonette and newsstand, being treated like royalty, the red carpet treatment, throwing money around, and everything else. Buying everybody drinks, and so he looked suspicious. And it's just so happened that it's like a coincidence that they had to be Thea at the time when this guy was doing this. Any other time, he wouldn't have been there. And so and the book goes more of a police procedures than anything else. And you're not going to find, it's a nonfiction book, so you're not going to find gunshots and car chases and things of that nature just in the movie. A lot of people reviewing this book on Goodreads go, "Oh, it wasn't like the movie. It was so boring." Well, don't be a police officer then. You're doing his paperwork and everything else. But yeah, and it's the tension is there. The tension is here in the story, and it's a very good story. And another thing about the movie was the score for the movie was done by Don Ellis, who was a jazz musician. And Don Ellis gave a concert at junior college, which is now a community college, called Eastfield, just down the road from where I live in Mesquite. And he was overwhelmed by the response that he got on that he received from the concert, that he donated his entire library to Eastfield College. So you could go walk by the library and it will say Don Ellis Memorial Library. And it will have his Grammy Awards there in the window that you can see. So that's very fascinating that someone that had a connection to the jazz and to the film French Connection would do something like that. It's very nice of him. On the next question, name your least favorite adaptations. The one that springs to mind is The Shining. I read the book by Stephen King, and the movie was done by Stanley Kubrick. And of course, Stephen King doesn't like the movie adaptation at all, and neither do I. Because the main point in the film was the Jack Nicholson character. Jack Nicholson character showed himself as being angry at the very beginning. It was angry, became still angry. And in the book, he wasn't angry. You read his background, but he wasn't angry until the hotel began to put pressure on him to make him change. And that's how the reason why Stephen King didn't like it. It's the reason why I didn't like it. And also, Stanley Kubrick got rid of the hedge animals, and which come into play in the book. And there are other things in the movie and in the book that didn't make any sense. And so that was one of my least favorite adaptations. Not sure about another one. I can't think of another one offhand. I probably will after I'm finished here with this video. The third question is, what character adaptation improves on the character? There are a couple here. One is from Chariots of Fire, film version. Ian Charleson plays Eric Little in that film. And Ian Charleson said that it was very hard for him to do, because it's very hard, he said, for an actor to play somebody good, as Eric Little was. He was an upright, religious person who ran for the glory of God. And he died in a Chinese prison camp. I do have a book by Eric Little about discipline in the Christian life. And it's interesting, one of the gentlemen that played Sam Mussolini, that was Ian Holm, who later would go on to play Bilbo Baggins in the Lord of the Rings cycle. The next one would be a BBC production of All Creatures Great and Small. And that was Christopher Timothy played James Harriet, Robert Hardy played Sigmund Farnan, and Peter Davidson played Tristan Farnan. And the reason I picked this is because I was watching a documentary about the making of All Creatures Great and Small. And they said that all the time during the filming, those three would get letters from people who asking about their pigs, or asking about their horses, or asking about their sheep. How do you take care of them? And they were just, and Christopher Timothy, Robert Hardy, and Peter Davidson they were just actors, and they were just acting out the part, but people took them as being real. And then after the series ended, Christopher Timothy couldn't find a job as an actor. Peter Davison became one of the doctors in the Doctor Who series. Robert Hardy went on to write a book called The Longbow, which is one of the best books about the longbow. And he also played Winston Churchill. But Christopher Timothy could not find a job, so he said he was walking up to see his agent, walking the stairs to see his agent, and this was 8 years after the show ended. And he heard his agent yell out, "He's not a veterinarian, he's an actor." And so, but that happens a lot in films and movies, because people will say, "Oh, he is Iron Man," or "He is Batman." You get typecast a lot in films. Well, that was it. That's 3 questions, and I thank you very much, BookTube, and take care.